We're born into what we're born into, but our potential is unlimited.
What have you found doing this now 200 times the common denominator is of people who have a great mindset?
I think that they realize that the situation that they were born into, or the frameworks or the deeply held beliefs that they have, they don't stop there. They just continue. They didn't quit. They didn't quit, and it came from someplace deep inside their soul. For me, my key takeaway after 200 episodes is everybody, right again to that common denominator, everybody has a journey.
Hi, and welcome to the very special 200th episode of the Common Denominator podcast. I'm Dave Aizer, and again, it is my pleasure and my honor to chat with the host of the show, Moshe Popack. We're going to spend some time looking back at the first 199 episodes and talk about some of your favorite moments, maybe some of your learning lessons along the way. But it's going to be a celebratory episode. So first of all, congratulations on 200 shows.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that that's the case because it started from just an idea. And I think that applies to everything in life, but we'll get into it. I'm really excited to always be out of the host seat and be sitting with you, Dave. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to do this. So, the piggybacking on what you just said, I remember when this vision started, but for the folks who don't know, tell everybody why you wanted to do a podcast.
Well, so, it's a very strange thing. Well, our story, the story of Yaf and I, we came down to Miami 18 years ago and had a job, lost our job, and at the time we have 3 kids. Today we have 11 children, and it was a really, really tough time at 2009. And basically, I kind of made a deal with the universe that if if I'm able to get out of this and I'm able to provide for my family and try to do the right thing, then I would in turn give back. And I always thought about it, I said, okay, what's a way to give back? You have to think about practical advice. A lot of people talk about ideas, and there's so many ideas. Every day I hear ideas. But I came up with a podcast idea, but then how am I gonna make it happen? So we talked about practical tips that we can give people, because people were coming to me, how'd you do this real estate deal? What's story with the 11 kids? All different things. So whenever we produce the show, it's an opportunity. I tell the team, I said, do not edit anything. I said, this should be just download of real stuff, because what you think about, I'm sure other people think about too. And then you find your people, like attracts alike. Yeah,
and as I was thinking about how to sort of navigate through this episode and what would be interesting to talk about, I thought it would be cool for you to explain the process of it, because I think a lot of people that are going to watch and or listen to this episode are going to be people who want to do a podcast.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to learn a lot just by hearing what you went through along the way. So one of the things I was remembering was this show, while it's always been called Common Denominator, has kind of, migrated a little bit. I remember the beginning, it was like stories of triumph and survival, and then it was business and current events, and now it's growth and mindset. It's been a journey, and I think it's a good lesson for anyone who wants to start a show. Things are going to change a bunch of times.
Yeah. I think that in anything that you do, you have to, we always talk about that, be able to pivot. I think for sure with the show, it's pivoted a lot. I've learned tremendous. I learned from the guests. So that's always what I think about as hosting. If I'm learning even one thing, one key takeaway, 2, 3, that means that the guests are learning. But I know that as a business, to have that as your means of making a living, it is hard. This is, I guess, again, in that charity box for myself and my family, but it is great because you're also creating a community. And with that community, you can connect with more and more people. But again, you're growing as a person. So the best investment is to also invest in yourself. It's a win-win. Everybody's winning.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. We're going to get to the guest in a minute, but it is pretty cool just kind of the scope of guests that you've had the opportunity to interview. Again, we'll go into specifics, but it must be so neat because you're an expert in business, you're an expert in real estate, but you're meeting these people from all walks of life, and they're just dropping these like crazy knowledge bombs on you.
Yeah, I think that the key message for me, my key takeaway after 200 episodes is everybody, right again to that common denominator. Everybody has a journey. Everybody has a story. And I always, throughout the shows, I've always mentioned Viktor Frankl, but it's always the idea of having a why. People will start things, whatever they're going to do. They're going to go on a journey, and you have to ask yourself, it's only going to be sustainable if it goes beyond the ebbs and the flows of life, and you continue, right? We've gotten to the 200th episode because I guess it's important to me. And the feedback has been tremendous, right? But the idea of having that why, of having that reason why you're doing something that goes above, the day-to-day, that idea, because like you said, tremendous guests that we've had. Olympians,
yes.
Right? Olympians and athletes and Super Bowl winners, but it's the same thing. It's hard, and then in time and space, just a win, but then back to the hard. But it doesn't mean hard, but I guess what you gotta do but that's the greatest lesson that I've learned, is you just keep showing up. You just keep showing up in life. There'll be ups, there'll be downs, there'll be rights, there'll be lefts, but I'm telling you, 200 amazing guests, but that is what my key takeaway is.
Yeah, and it's funny because you've become such a good host. You're now setting yourself up for the next question. You're actually segueing even as a guest. Very, very nicely done.
Yeah,
well done. No, because I know you pretty well by now, and I know how busy of a guy you are. And there are some days, and look, I was on television. I was blessed to be on TV for a long time, and I know there's some days when you walk on a set and you're like, I'm tired. I'm just annoyed. But I give you credit because you do it, man. Every single time you sit down in that chair and you're like, let's go. And then I find, correct me if I'm wrong, but your day ends up being better for the time that you've spent talking to guests. So another lesson I think for people watching and listening is like, in the beginning, this sounds great. I'm going to do a podcast. And then by month 2, you're like, I can't find a guest. And then by month 3, you're like, I'm exhausted. But if you can just really like pour your heart and soul into it and be present, then you get great feedback from fans, your guests are happy, and also kind of selfishly, it's nourishing for your own soul, right?
Completely. Always when I come out of the shows, taping the shows, it's like super clarity, super energized, going in, especially in the beginning. I mean, I don't know if we have any bloopers, but it was super hard. It was hard. I didn't go to school for any of this, right? So I'm thinking to myself, how do I break this out? But over time, you're learning from the guests, you're reading, you're studying, you're watching and listening to more and more podcasts. It's like anything, right? You're fine-tuning a muscle because people don't actually realize what I thought was my best version of myself is kind of like I'm an introvert, actually. So it's like, who's this guy, right?
An introvert is posting 200 episodes of
podcasts, right?
Right.
Necessity. Right? The same way what I always say, and Yafa was mentioning this the other day, I have some success in business. I don't have that as my nature, right? From my nature, it's like music, books, by myself, in nature, just grounding, but I happen to have 11 kids, the podcast, the business, real estate, we're creating a real estate fund, like all these things, it's like connecting with people. And then I do find like attracts like. When you're around the right energy of people, and this has been the guests that I've interviewed. Your energy just rises up, and it's amazing what you can accomplish.
Because some of them, most of them, all of them have stories that are just jaw droppers. Yeah. So you had mentioned a few minutes ago bloopers. We don't have a blooper reel, but I'm curious. You don't have to get into specific episodes or guests, but give the viewers or the listeners like a moment where you were like, oh, that's a hard lesson I just learned in the middle of a podcast. Oh, I wish I could do that over. Because you're not going to be perfect on day one if you're starting your show.
Yeah. It's realizing, well, in the beginning, those first few episodes, realizing, you know what? If you're not live, right? We're not
live to tape. We try not to stop,
right?
But yeah.
So that realization, you're like, okay, if you mess up, you're like, okay, we can redo. And we've had in those bunch of episodes, we've had to redo, we've had to stop. Different things have come up, but also just in general, because right, the number one thing, top fear, right, is fear of public speaking. But I also think just getting comfortable being on the camera. So long, for at least 50 episodes, it was like weird for me, strange. And then one day it clicked.
Yeah, and by the way, we all noticed it sitting in the control room watching you one episode. We were like, oh man, he's a host now. Yeah, like look what he just did there. Just asked he just pivoted off of that and he went back to his line of questioning, or he asked a follow up or whatever he did. Because sometimes a guest. That's the other thing too, is that some guests speak in poetry, right? And they're like everything is a soundbite. Sometimes it's hard to coax it out of them. Sometimes there's like technical glitches. So there's a lot that goes into this.
But also there could be a guest, right? Let's say it's a 30-minute show, 30-minute show. And the guest, you had a first question and the guest is going on for 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
And I love the story. It could be riveting. It could be great. But as a host, you're like, okay, it's like the technical things of the show.
So you mentioned guests. So I'm going to ask you about some guests. But before I do, take a look at this.
Moshe, congratulations on the 200th episode of your podcast. It was great to be part of it. We had a super conversation. Of course, we've been friends for a long time, and we've had some great talks on and off the mat as we train jiu-jitsu. And I'm looking forward to many more episodes, as I always learn a lot through the great guests and conversations that you have. Congratulations.
Hi, Moshe. This is David Packhouse. It was great to be on your podcast, and congratulations on your 200th episode. Looking forward to the celebration for the 400th episode. Keep going strong.
Hi, Moshe. Dr. Sonali Reuter here, the foodie physician. Congratulations on 200 episodes. Thank you for making me feel so welcome as a guest. Here's to another 200 more.
Hey, it's Alec Torelli, poker player and coach. I want to give a shout out and a congrats to Moshe and the Common Denominator team for their 200th episode. I loved my time on the show. Check out his podcast and congrats. Hopefully I'll do another one soon, and best of luck.
So some people with some kind words to say, and we've got some more for the end of the episode too.
I think that it's super nice to hear that. I'll tell you a story. In general, I know for me, and I know there's plenty of people out there that are just super hard on themselves. Okay, I am that way. Morning to night, whatever needs to get done, pretty much from what I can remember, pretty much my entire life. Okay, right? You keep your mouth shut, keep your head down. Law school, business school. We come here. I lose my job, which we talked about. Right? I have 3 kids, and you just do whatever you need to do. Right? And that's just what it is. I tell my team, give me the worst problems. Imagine that, right? Like, I'm a human too, right? It's whatever needs to happen all the time. But when I hear things like that, just yesterday, literally, so my kids, as you know, they have vending machine business. And my oldest son, Mendy, one of the locations is by a fellow, huge multi-billion-dollar company. And he's sitting there. My son's in business school, Mendy, and his head is in there fixing the vending machine, right? Like, we're here, he's doing whatever it takes. And this guy's, a billionaire. He calls me and he says to me, he's like, I want you to know, because he came, he immigrated to the United States with nothing. And he says to me, he's like, you should know about your Yafa and your sacrifice that you've done all these years. He's like, that's what pays off. He saw that. He pops his head out. Oh, hey, like he didn't think of it as a big deal. But those things, doing the work, doing the action every day, and then when I hear feedback, it allows me to breathe just a little more, to realize like it's okay. And that I have a life coach also for 13 years. And he said to me, right, which is a long, long time, and he's very, very hard on me all the time, but he gets really upset at me. He's like, you gotta be a little more proud of yourself each day. And he really, like, I think that that's really one of also the very important lessons. Everybody, life's freaking hard.
Yeah,
it's
man.
hard. And everybody should just be a little more proud. Go out, enjoy your family, and go out to dinner, do what you gotta do, go play some tennis, right, whatever. It's not all about, we're not machines, right? So when I hear that, it gives me warmth that like, you know what, there are good people out there, they're just trying hard, but it's not all about, right, because I don't have that personality in business. It's like they told me originally,
You're not
people found that cutthroat, right? But you don't need to be.
Right.
You don't need to be. You could be kind, you could be direct, tell the truth, say what it is, and do the hard work over the long term.
Well, even the very premise of the show is about unity. It's about common denominator, and you bring people on. Those 4 people that we just saw are totally different walks of life: a jiu-jitsu master, a poker player, a physician, and a guy who sold arms and had a film. And when I say arms, I don't mean physical body parts. I mean like weapons, and had a movie made about his life.
Great movie,
Great movie, War Dogs.
Yeah.
Check it out. Great movie.
Yeah.
But those are 4 totally vastly different people from different walks of life. But I think the common denominator is that when I sent out this email asking for tributes, testimonials, people were like falling over themselves to do it, because one thing has always been like, you treat everybody first class, and you ask great questions, and people are super happy to share. Have you always, even though you were an introvert, and even though you weren't born a host, have you always, and I think I already know the answer to this, you've always been curious, you've always been empathetic, there's something about you that makes people want to open up and talk to you. What is that?
Well, well, the number one thing is, if you don't want to be judged, you can't judge other people. So you have to go in with a place, and that my kids have really tested me and fine-tuned me. But I know I'm a complicated guy, okay, to begin with. So I just want to give I've seen a lot in my life, and I just want to give the benefit of the doubt to people. And because I also believe that when we were all born, right? Think about it, a pure little baby. From the beginning, this is actually the way I see it. First of all, that's a miracle to begin with. The baby's born, perfect. And all 8 billion of us, perfect. What happens is that people don't think about it. Is that life happens. And people have to make choices. And everybody wants to judge, everybody wants it because they knock other person to make themselves feel better, and all those things. But in essence, that's the common denominator. Really, we're all just trying. Nobody really knows anything, right? It's like, I always say that statistically, the whole world, how it exists, I live in that place, right? I live in a place where, we're born, and then one day we go, and I've always had that. Like, people would be like, why don't you just shut down your brain already? Like, just enjoy it. But I am always thinking it's a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
That's always just what it is. I just want to know. I go till 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, going to these rabbit holes about random topics, like, more useless information. But I want to know, we're only here. I feel time a lot.
So to that point, do you find yourself having an interview with somebody, learning about their amazing process, whatever it is, and then, I don't know, bringing that up at a dinner party a week later, or implementing some of that? Like, I'll give you an example. Yeah. Alec Torelli, the poker champion who was on, I play a little bit of poker. Max plays a lot of poker. Max is on our team. You play a lot of poker.
Yeah.
I just remember him talking about poker, and I was like, I'm using that. I'm taking that. Like, when you play poker now, for example, do you take that stuff?
For sure. I learn a lot from the guests in practical. And then we'll have dinner with friends or whatever it is. And then Yafa's like, there's Moshe again talking about like, different topics. But I have, right, in these, what is it, maybe a little over 4 years, 4.5 years, it's tremendous learning. And people I meet, if something's unique to someone that's from Japan, for example, something, how many people that come into, that come in contact that are from Japan, and specific about like, oh, they make waffles and boba tea, really came from Japan, but I had done research about it, and I'm having this conversation, and his face lights up.
Yep.
Right? Because that's all it is, right? Like, oh yeah, I took my daughter to that shop in somewhere in Japan. I'm like, wow, and it happens to me every day, all the time.
Yeah, and
you connect with people.
And I noticed that when you interview someone and you say something from their universe, they're always like fascinated that and then also whenever you mention 11 kids, that's like a surefire way to get a guest to just freak out, because it happens every time. A couple more questions I want to ask you. We end every show, or you end every show, by asking what people are grateful for and what's the common denominator of whatever field they're in or whatever they've achieved. So my question is to you, when you ask people what they're grateful for, what have been some of the things that people have said that have really stuck with you?
I remember one guest, because his face lit up so much, Kehinde Thomas. Here's this person, nothing, came from Nigeria, nothing, but you could see that his DNA was living, you talk about that gratitude. He just exuded that happiness, and his wife, who came in, was like his assistant, but they worked together. And if you can live just that energy, it wasn't necessarily the words, if you can live in gratitude and love and like realize 100%, that's the message that people don't understand. There will 100% of the time be failures. It's not a failure. It's a learning experience. I know you hear it, but if you can internalize it, I have to internalize that all the time. I have to, again, because I'm hard on myself, like, how come that didn't work out? And you see the worst things that ever happened to you end up being the best things. This fellow, he had nothing, lived in the streets, Nigeria, immigrated, nothing. And you go back, watch that episode, you'll see his face. That's what sticks out. When I see guests that just live, because we all live here in this world, and if you can live with that glass half full, it's amazing.
Yeah. It's funny, because when you started talking about him, I was remembering when he walked into studio, because sometimes we're fortunate enough to have the guests come into studio.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's, one of the cool things about doing like a mindset and positivity podcast is that the guests are usually pretty positive people. And so he walked in and it was just like, you don't even know the guy and you just want to give him a hug. You just want to be in his orbit. And it's really cool to be around people like that are just so grateful.
Yeah.
And then so the second question is the second question that you ask everyone, which is, what is the common denominator of fill in the blank depending on the guest? What have you found doing this now 200 times? The common denominator is of people who have a great mindset, who are optimists, who are successful.
I think that they realize that the situation that they were born into, or the frameworks or the deeply held beliefs that they have, they don't stop there. They know that they're destined, there's some fire inside of them, that's what I see. That no matter what the stat or the logic or what people tell them, and we all have that, but what is it? It's also grounded in reality, day by day by day. So to the outside world, it's like, wow, this guy's extremely stubborn. Why is he doing this? What's going on? And for years, everyone's going to tell, failure. I saw something about Lady Gaga, right? And all her classmates, everybody, you're not going to amount to anything. I mean, just an example that I saw yesterday, and nothing. And she would just continue and continue. If you just continue, that's the idea. They just continued. They didn't quit. They didn't quit, and it came from someplace deep inside their soul. That's the common denominator. So that, hopefully, the show shows people that anybody can do anything. I come from a Jewish background, so we study the Old Testament. And I think everybody knows the story, or have heard of the story of Abraham. So was Abraham had his family, he had everything that was going on. But what did he do? He picked up and went to the desert, away from everything he knew. You know, that's what it is. God told me to go. And from there, a whole generations of tribes and people and things. We're born into what we're born into, but our potential is unlimited. We just have to have a plan, write the goals down. And I always say that example because I want to give that now. When you're lying in bed, because I just told this to somebody just yesterday, it's what you're thinking about. Have the pen and paper. What you're thinking about in bed, when you lie down, your brain is quiet, and you just write, stream of consciousness. That's your start. That's your destiny. It's always what I see. And more and more people that can do that, the more amazing results we'll see in the world.
Can you visualize episode 400 right now?
I completely can, but now we have to take what's present. Whatever happened in the past is great. And we are where we are. We've made it, right? 200 episodes. Now it's a question of, okay, what corners can we push? Doing the work. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, for sure. We're going to get to 400, 500. I mean, this is just part of the lifestyle of what we've chosen. But I want to say one more thing because this also just stuck in my mind. The practical tips, just on the business side. Mm-hmm. A friend of ours who's our piano teacher, and I know we've told the story. She was on the show.
Yep.
And she said she was going to buy a condo, and she said, I was going to pay full asking price. And I called my lawyer. I saw the episode where it said, oh, you know, now it's a buyer's market, offer lower. And she went ahead, called the lawyer, offer $100,000 less. Just something practical like that. She was so ecstatic.
Sure.
They accepted that offer, and she saved $100,000. It's a lot of money. So I love that feedback. I love when good things happen to good people.
Well, it's been a wonderful ride so far, and we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So hearty congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And the boys want to give you something. Myself, Max, our social media director, and Kiva, one of our producers on the show, who does a great job. We all got together, and we have a little treat for you. So, guys,
you didn't have to.
Guys, bring it in. Yes. No, we wanted to do it because we're there with you in the trenches every day, but you're the front man. You're the guy who makes it happen. So we're super appreciative of that, and as a way to show our appreciation. We're celebrating you and 200 episodes.
Thank you so much.
With a kosher and gluten-free cake. Okay, we made sure we followed all the rules.
It looks delicious.
We'll eat this as soon as we're done. So thanks again for letting us three be part of this journey with you.
Yeah. No, it's been great. I hope that we just continue to learn, grow. Man, it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for letting me sit here. And Moshe will be back in his host chair next week for another great episode. And before we go, we will leave all of you with some more tributes and testimonials from some more guests on Common Denominator.
Congratulations, Moshe and the whole Common Denominator team on your 200th episode. Myself and so many others are so blessed to know you, to learn from you, to tune into the show. I wish you nothing but the best and continue to bring that genuine connection and education to people that are striving for more and looking for that common denominator that you share. We appreciate you. Congratulations.
Hey, Moshe, this is Candy Thomas right here. Congratulations on reaching 200 episodes of the Common Denominator podcast. That is an incredible milestone, by the way. And it speaks volume. It talks about your dedication, your passion, but most importantly, the impact that you're making with each episode. You see, it was truly an honor to be a guest, on your show. I truly enjoyed it. I really did. And I thank you for the very impactful conversations that we had, that you brought to the table. And with each episode, you're contributing significantly. Keep inspiring and making a difference. Again, congratulations to you. Just very proud of what you're doing.
Hey Moshe, it's TJ Sharp. Congratulations on 200 episodes of Common Denominator. As patient number 1, but also guest number 2 on Common Denominator, it's been incredibly rewarding to be able to see and hear everything you've done to spread positivity throughout this world. Keep up the great work, and congrats to you and your staff and team there.